Hi there. I'm Dr. Michelle Fannin-Steele, and I'm the CEO of Dirigo Food Safety, and I'm bringing you this lecture series on how we make food safety a reality in local and regional food manufacturers. And right now, I'm going to talk to you about what I call having the hard conversations, or the idea about how we actually make the changes we need to make in our food manufacturing companies so that we can create the vibrant local and regional economies that are possible through the manufacture of local food. So let's get started. Again, I'm Dr. Michelle Fannin-Steele. I run Dirigo Food Safety, and you can reach me at michelle@dirigoFoodSafety.com. So what do I mean by having the hard conversations? Well, here's the deal. If you are running a food manufacturing company, or really any kind of company, you got to create a company where your employees can be the best employees that you need. All right, who the universe is calling them to be. And around here, we call this the strive paradigm. And strive means that we help employees in food manufacturing companies and beyond feel like they matter. You know, we spend 80% of our lives at work. We might as well do things that matter. We might as well have relationships that matter and treat people like they matter. And this is how to have those conversations, how to be the people at work that we need to be. So where do we start? Honestly, it starts with emotional intelligence. Well, what's emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is understanding how you feel and who you're supposed to be in the world. It's about living up to that, because really to do anything else is soul crushing. We've all been there. We've all been in places where we don't feel like we're being the people that the universe is calling us to be. And guess what? Emotional intelligence is the idea that we can do something about that we can understand what's going on around us, and that we can modulate our feelings and our reactions so that we can do a good job anyway and create a better situation. All right? We have a saying around here and around my house. I have a couple of little kids, and you know, we're trying to teach them to grow up to be kind and competent, good citizens of the world. And I'm trying to teach food manufacturers how to be kind and competent, good citizens of the world. Okay, and we do that by understanding a couple of things. We understand the regulations that we're expected to live up to. We understand what we make and how we make it, and we understand that in order to do the things that we need to do, we need to bring our best selves to work, and that sometimes that's really, really hard. And so emotional intelligence allows us to say, birds fly, fish swim, and people feel. And feelings are not facts, all right? We've all been there when we're at work and we're feeling terrible about something that's happened. Either it's our fault, or that somebody else has done something to us, or things beyond anybody's control. But the truth is that feelings aren't facts. And when we look at creating vibrant local and regional food companies, we gotta understand that creating resiliency relies on emotional intelligence. And that the things that we ask people to do in the context of food safety is not because we don't like them, it's not because we don't trust them, it's because we need stuff documented, right? All right, and so what I'm gonna walk you through today is how to make your employees feel like they matter, like they make a difference, okay? This presentation is written from the perspective of quality assurance, all right? And if you think about it, anybody who works in a food company has a QA function, or like really you kind of wouldn't be there. Even if you're, you know, even this is your second night cleaning out totes in fish plant, you have a quality assurance function. If you're an accountant and you're working with somebody who makes food, you have a quality assurance function. Everybody who works with food, no matter what the capacity, has the potential and the capability and the work and frankly the requirement to ensure that safe quality food makes it out of the plant. And this is how we talk about doing it. All right. and we talk about emotional intelligence at the individual level. So how am I feeling and how am I relating to others? In a group level, so a QA, often we have a QA team, we have a management team, we have an operations team, we have a sanitation team. How do all those groups work with each other? How do we take our individual emotional intelligence and create a group emotional intelligence? But then in food companies, the work is so complex, we got to take those groups and we got to create cross-boundary emotional intelligence. And by doing that and by understanding how we can create norms of how we act and how we work with each other, we can create resilient local businesses. So what does this look like? Well, we need to figure out how to create an environment where employees feel safe. I've been bullied at work. Other people have been bullied at work. I've been harassed at work. I've known shame and fear at work. We all have. If you look at the research, the predominant feelings that we feel at work are not positive ones. If you look at that list here on the slide, only one of those is positive. And the joy that we get at work can sometimes be incredibly fleeting. And most of the time, our work is can be really boring. You know, I write HACCP plans for a living. It's not the most intrinsically interesting thing in the whole entire world. I can do it and I'm good at it. I do it really fast and I bring that service out into the world. I'm glad when they work and somebody can get value out of it, but the actual writing of a hazard analysis, not really that interesting, okay? So when we look at our work environments, we have to understand how people are feeling in that present moment, all right? And we have to create environments where employees feel safe. And there are really kind of three areas where employees need to feel safe. And this is true in any organization, whether you're a student or a professor in a class, whether you're the CEO, I'm a CEO, whether you're a worker, hourly or manager, okay? You need to feel emotionally safe. You need to know that people aren't going to hurt you at work. You need to feel physically safe. Every week I get stories across my desk about somebody who died in food production. It doesn't have to happen. It shouldn't happen. And people need to be physically safe at work, and that means management needs to create the conditions for people to be physically safe at work. If you don't know how to do that, give me a holler, call me, email me, and we'll talk about what it means to be physically safe at work. People need to feel financially safe. Okay, in order for people to do their best work at work, they need to be compensated for it, and they need to know that the company itself is on a good footing and isn't about to run out of money. All right, it's not necessarily just about the paycheck. There are a ton of people who work in food, who work for minimum wage, and still feel financially safe. All right, you got to take all three of these and bring them together so that employees feel safe at work. Because you can't, if you're worried about your own safety, about your emotional safety, your physical or your financial safety, you can't bring your best self to work. It's just not possible. And so what QA and management teams need to do is they need to foster an environment where people are safe. It means you have to fire the bullies. Okay, I give this presentation everywhere. Every place I look, every single person without hesitation knows who the bully is at work. Get rid of them. There are people in the world we are meant to serve and others not so much. And the bullies in your work are meant to serve other people because they're miserable. And we can have long conversations about how that works, but those miserable human beings need to be moved out and moved along, okay? And they need to go out of your organization. Do not promote them to points where they can do even more harm to try and get rid of them. Don't do that. That's not fair. Get rid of them. Understand that you have to work with people who you can be emotionally, physically safe with, because without that, financially safe doesn't matter, okay? You need to think about helping individuals problem solve. Who has the most control over whether or not the sanitation in your food business gets done? It's the people actually doing the sanitation. And so if they run into a problem, you need to help them figure out how to solve those problems without always relying on management to solve them. These are all individual actions. These are individual ways that people can be emotionally intelligent and work and create a safe environment. Next, you need to be a part of or help create an environment where people are trained, okay? And I'm not talking about just, how do you take apart the grinder, how do you take apart the slicer or the mixer or whatever. Absolutely, people need to be able to do that, clearly. But they have to be trained to competence, all right? What do they do when something goes wrong? How do they know what to do? And then you have to think about development, because even the guys on the, on the sanitation team, the guys doing the most lowly entry-level jobs that we have in food production, they deserve development too, okay? And they often know more about your product and your processes than you ever could. How are you developing them? How are you bringing the knowledge and skills of those men and women to the fore so that they can help your business grow? Understanding those positions, understanding the competencies that people need, understanding how to take training, establish confidence, and drive towards excellence, which is what we talk about in the Army, is incredibly important. And that's how you really take your training systems and you help them drive towards profitability. Is you train individuals and you give those individuals groups where they feel safe, and you drive towards growth and profitability. The next thing that we need to talk about is respect. We live in an age where civil respect is eroded, and there are probably an awful lot of reasons for that. I'm talking to you behind a computer screen. I'm not sitting in front of a class or in the lecture hall with you or at a conference. I'm talking to you behind a screen, and you can be doing just about anything that you want. But the truth is that when we're working in food, we're actually working with people. There are many things we can do on computers, and manufacture food is not one of them. And so when we look at how do we ensure that we respect people, well, in food and in the manufacturing of food and in really the manufacturing of anything, you have to acknowledge what people are good at. What are they doing? All right. Where can they go? We just talked about training. Well, where are they going with that training? What other contributions can they make? What contributions are they actually making? These kinds of conversations require teams across boundaries, understanding, management has to understand what operations is doing, has to understand what sanitation is doing, because that's the only way that we can value what everybody's doing in the manufacturing plant, okay? And so understanding how people and the way we respect people. There's a huge cultural conversation about how we show respect to people across cultures. Because of course in food manufacturing, very often the people actually with their hands on the food are not white upper middle class folks who are often running the companies. We have a different set of people who are manufacturing the food. It's really important to understand within their culture, whether they're in management or whether they're a line worker, what that means and how you show respect. Invested in. We need to create environments in food manufacturing where people feel invested in. All right, here are 6 really common ways that companies invest in people. Because you get your best work when your people feel like they are getting your best work out of you, okay? So a lot of this is, I would say a lot of this is intuitive, but truly, when we encourage people and we give them incentives and we help them learn, I think last year, the year before that, Starbucks, Starbucks serves us a lot of coffee. I drink a lot of Starbucks when I'm traveling. They sent all of their baristas who wanted to get an undergraduate degree. That's an incredible way for people to feel invested in. Sending people to conferences, helping to learn and grow, helping them to go to classes and do the things that they need to do to get ahead, to be excellent, is a great way for people to feel invested in. There are tons of employee health programs that you can do that help people feel invested. one of the things that is often overlooked in food is a very physical business. And if you do workspace design in a way that it minimizes ergonomic injury, it minimizes waste. You know, if you're familiar with lean manufacturing processes and the wastes associated, if you do ergonomic design, you can save people's backs, you can save time walking around the factory of people, and you can save time walking around the factory of products. And so that's an investment that workers, that management recognizes that can give immediate returns. So I'd encourage you to think about all the jobs that you've been in where people feel invested in, and what did management do? I would imagine most of that is not the office Christmas party. I mean, like, because I've never felt particularly invested in when I had an office Christmas party to go to. I might feel more invested in if they gave me an afternoon off during the holiday season, but it isn't the office Christmas party that make people feel invested in. Okay, it's making it a worthwhile place to work is what makes people feel invested in. Okay, and that feeling invested in, that's something that has to happen at an individual level. All right. Management has to go to individuals and ensure that they feel invested in. It's not, hey, ops, you did a really good job, let's have a pizza party. Maybe that's a culturally appropriate way to show appreciation. Maybe it's not. And employees and teams can really tell when somebody's giving lip service to feeling invested in, as opposed to actually being invested in. And everybody has that. Everybody's had that happen to them. All right. And so when we think about this, oops, I didn't change my, here, you know, this is open. We'll just change it right here. Good thing I have an acronym to keep me squared away. So where employees feel valued, all right, we know that employees feel valued when we show compassion towards them and when we have good levels of communication and we have leadership. So I want to take this opportunity to talk about leadership. Back in my other videos, if you've watched them, I talk a lot about leadership and education and training around leadership. I was an Army captain. Army officers are leaders. Every person in the Army, from an E1 all the way up to our flag officers, has the opportunity to be a leader. Leadership starts individually, moves through groups, and eventually ends up cross boundaries. And creating norms where leadership is expected. And we do that by empowering people to lead others. Leadership is the creation of the ability for other people to lead. I'm a CEO. I have an entire team of people who does what the company needs to do. Not because I tell them, but it's because I make sure that they feel valued and that they understand what I'm doing and what the purpose of the company existing is. All right? And we do that because I have compassion for their situations. I communicate with them all the time. We are always talking about where we're going, what we're doing, what are the problems that could happen, what are the problems that we've overcome. And we've established norms around the office. I've helped people establish norms at their manufacturing facilities where we allow people at all levels to be leaders. And that's how you can make employees feel valued, because you value their contributions, you understand their contributions, and you know where they are in life. And what does this all end up in? Well, the idea is that everybody is empowered to stop the line. Okay, like when something goes wrong, the newest hire, the lowest paid person in the manufacturing plant can see something going wrong and say something and stop the line to prevent hazardous food from getting out the door. All right, that can be really, really hard because you know what? We get paid in manufacturing and food manufacturing, any other kind of manufacturing, on pounds of product, a number of product out the door. But that's not the metric that we need. Having pounds of product go out the door, not good enough. We need to have pounds of safe products go out the door. And the only way that we know that that can happen is when people are empowered to stop the line and to make sure problems get fixed. That is a norm that has to be established. Okay, there was an article that came out in the newspaper yesterday where somebody working in a meat packing plant lost 4 fingers, and the manager in that plant said that if you go and get a lawyer, you'll lose your job. So that person went and got a lawyer. He lost his job, and then he turned around and sued for retaliatory firing. Because the truth of the matter is that if somebody's losing their fingers at work, this entire paradigm has broken down because, S stands for safe, and if you don't feel physically safe because you've lost your fingers at work, you're not actually physically safe at work, right? And so, that's a ridiculous situation for anybody to find themselves in, and that's not how we are going to be growing our local and regional food systems, because that's completely tenable. You can't do that to people, and you can't stay in business as a small business to have those sorts of things happen. So we have to be able to create norms within our working environment where people are empowered to stop the line and not have management retribution. They don't get in trouble for doing the right thing. And in many, many organizations, there is a norm where people get in trouble for not calling out when the wrong thing is done. And that's one of the ways that you can enforce pounds of safe product out the door, is that people feel empowered and are given the opportunity to do the right thing. And that's a great way to know that you can sleep at night, because you're not sending God knows what out the door, no matter how it was manufactured. You're sending safe product out the door. And at the end of the day, that's really what matters. That's how you sleep at night. And so that's our Strive paradigm. Anywhere you go, you can figure out how to make sure people feel safe. You can help them feel safe by calling out bullying, by making sure that people are not working in places that are unsafe, by striving to understand what's going on financially with a business. People feel trained. Individually, people need to take their training seriously. We don't do these things. I train professionally, and I know when people are paying attention or not. And when people are trained, and they're trained to competency, and they're trained to excellency, they can make such a difference in a business. And then all the other things, being respected and invested in and valued, when you bring your whole self to work, you can really create the environment that makes that all possible. And it all ends up in empowered workers who are empowered to make sure that the production is done correctly, workers who are empowered to help you make a safer, more resilient, stronger business. And so that's the Strive paradigm. And I would welcome your questions. Again, I'm Michelle at Dirigo Food Safety, and I look forward to talking to you. Thanks again, and have a great day.